Hello there and welcome to another edition of the Moaning Show. My name is HED01. In this one I'd like to talk to you about something rather topical at the moment, and that is heat. Now, as I record this, we're in early August and we're in the middle of summer, obviously, because that's what the summer months are, but it's fucking hot. And the mere fact that I've had to turn off my fan because it picks up, the noise from the microphone isn't doing me much good at the moment. I've got to be honest and say that, that I could be a darn sight cooler. But before I really get going, I'll show you viewers a little tip. Have your fan going. Grab a water siphon or bottle or whatever you want to call it, spray yourself and have the fan blow on your cold, the coldness of the of your face. But anyway, getting back to heat, none of us do very well in heat. Obviously smaller people, thinner people, better conditioned people. Specifically, I'm a big lad, and heat affects me probably more than most, especially at the moment with the year that I've had up until this point. Now, the worst thing about the heat is specifically when you're not able to cool down very much, specifically at any stage where you don't have access to a fan or some sort of cooling implement like air conditioning or something like that. Now, one of the worst things about all of it is the simple fact of you go somewhere where there isn't a fan and you just swelter. I've spent a lot of time in the last couple of months in waiting rooms, and my local doctor's surgery does not have a fan, and sometimes you can be in there for longer than 20 minutes and you're just sweltering away. You're literally leaking, just for the simple fact of you're a fat bastard, or you're wearing too much, or you're wearing a thick top and you didn't mean to. There's not a lot you can do about it, other than just thank whatever deity you believe in or whatever when you finally do get called to your appointment. I'm still having daily dressing changes at the time of recording this video, like I said, early August, and the heat is practically unbearable even as I speak to you, hence the reason it's a vest again. Again, I apologise, I may record a few of these in bulk and just fuck the heat, fuck the people that say, oh, you're not very presentable. This is the Moaning Show. If you want it presentable, go watch daytime TV, fuck off. But anyway, the heat is just something that it gets all of us. I'm white. I am fucking white, and the worst thing about that is that I go out in the sun when I can, obviously, and I don't get a tan from the sunshine. What I do is I go red, similar to this sort of colour, I burn and then I peel. I don't retain any of the colours from the sun. I have freckles, which is basically my tan, and possibly the colour I could be, but there is a significant part of me that kind of wants to be, more tan, so to speak, physically attractive, and it's frustrating that I don't go a nice shade of light brown or something like that, or again, that's the word, tan. Tan is a shade of brown, and you have to take that into consideration, that there are people out there fair-skinned or fair-haired that do suffer more in these conditions. I'm not talking about large people like myself. I'm talking about these people with red hair, and they go out in the sun for 20 minutes and they start to burn, you know. And yes, we're told to take you know, medical consideration, you know, before we go out, if we're going to be out in the sunshine for a long time, and apply sunscreen or suntan lotion or whatever. Now, I'll go back in time a little bit, say 20 years or so, to a time where I did get sunburnt quite badly, and instead of applying after sun or whatever, my parents bought me something called calamine lotion. Now, this stuff was kind of good for you. It was a white, so like, when it dried on you, it was something like a white chalky based substance, you know, with mixed with water and stuff like that. I don't know the details. This is a Moaning Show. Fuck off. I don't do my research. But anyway, this stuff was kind of like milk that settled on your body. It cooled it down, but you got really sticky and stiff. It's as if you would get all sorts of, like, you could barely like stretch your arm out further than that if you were sunburnt and you had this shit all over you, you know. And I don't know if it still exists today. Obviously I don't go looking for it, but you know, it'd be nice to see if any of the viewers watching this use calamine lotion, and just see if it still, you know, does what it needs to do. But the thing is, the heat does different things to different people, regardless of how long you're out in it. The interesting thing is, sometimes it doesn't do us any good, specifically if we've either had too much to eat or not enough to eat. And I remember getting home from school one day and I just felt terrible. I had a decent day at school, you know, nothing wrong with that, but the walk home did me in, and that's probably something that contributed to you know, having the issues that I'm having now. You know, that's another video for another time. But you have to look at it from the heat perspective. It wasn't as hot back then as it is now, you know, in 2019, and it's fucking frustrating, because with global warming, the greenhouse effect, whatever you want to call it, it's only going to get hotter. You know, we're supposed to have hotter summers and wetter winters. At the moment, we're having hotter summers and more drastic effect winters with regards to snow and all that sort of shit. Now, you can more or less say this is a Moaning Show about heat, and it is. I'm trying not to venture off too far into the sort of like weather type things, because that could be another topic for another show. But again, you just swelter. If you don't own any cooling appliances, we're talking a fan, air conditioning, you're more or less reliant on open windows. And this is another thing that I want to talk about. I live in a bungalow next door to the one I used to live in, thanks to the disabilities, the physical disabilities of my dear departed mum. And in this bungalow there is very little or next to no ventilation. Now, obviously back when I lived in Surrey, there was adequate ventilation, at least I'd say. I mean, obviously it was cooler then as well, you know, there's nothing you can do about that. But the thing is, every room had a sort of like a metallic vent that led to outside or whatever, with like a steel grating over it or an aluminium grating over it, which stopped the flies getting in and stuff like that. And this thing was, I'll try and hold it up, it was about that square, and it had sort of like 4 or 5 bits either side. So in other words, it was like this, with a sort of screw in the middle, and this is how the cool air from outside got in. Now, windows these days, specifically double glazed windows, you know, they're nothing special, but back then they were, you know. And one of the horrible things about the windows we have these days, they're the only form of ventilation we get. Now, I'm not talking about opening a window and just like seeing it like that. What I'm talking about is these piddly little pieces of shit that the small vents in them are, I'm just looking at it now, they're about that wide, about that thick, and they got little, like 4 to 6 little indents of about 2 inches or 1.5 inches long, and you click them open and that's supposed to cool your room. Bollocks is what I'm saying to that. It's a load of bollocks. These things cool you, if at all, basically, and they are rather pathetic to say the least. I miss these big ass vents that you used to get, you know, back in the olden days when houses were built. And the strange thing is, I think it's stopped now, but when I first moved into these bungalows back in 2008, which is when they were built, or you know, 2007, early 2008, these bungalows had plastic guttering as well. That's another thing as well. The house I used to live in back in Surrey had, I wouldn't say iron, but it was kind of like maybe it was iron guttering. Now, the plastic guttering expands and contracts as it gets hotter or as it cools down, and it clicks and all that sort of shit, and you know, and sometimes you think something's outside or whatever. I live on the ground floor of, you know, because obviously it's a bungalow, you know, and I have to keep my windows open because it's so fucking hot. Yes, I own a lot of electrical equipment, you know, and I should turn things off. But the modern household has its internet on 24/7. It has a computer on, say, 18 to 20 hours of a day. It has 1 or 2 games consoles, you know. I mean, as I look in my room where I'm recording this, I have 1, 2, 3. I have 4 consoles, a digital recording device. I have a fan. I have a computer. I have a light and a couple of electrical appliance chargers. You know, like a phone or a Kindle or something like that. You know, so my room is really quite hot. I have my fan, a pedestal fan, you know, which is about 4 to 4.5 feet tall, and I've had it in my room for the best part of the 5 years that I've lived in this house, or this bungalow, this home. So, and I've had this fan on basically all the time over the last, say, 2 years, give or take a week or two, because even in the winter months I'm hot, and that's a lot to do with my weight. This isn't a moaning show about weight, this is a moaning show about heat. Like I say, it affects us all. We may become physically weaker in heat, you know. We may be physically ill, quite frankly, you know. We might throw up, we might be, oh god, I'm not feeling too good, and sometimes that's to do with the heat. And there's not a lot you can do about it. Yes, you can grab your spray bottles and spray your face with water, you know. If you're wearing a bit less, spray it on your legs and let the fan cool your legs as well, you know. But other than that, I mean, there's these so-called life hacks online, and you read them and it's like, it's not a bad idea, but you then, it's something to do with getting 2 drinks bottles, connect them to the back of your fan, because apparently an electrical fan, blows air from the back of it forward. So you're basically getting the air that's circulating around the back of it. Now, if, you know, it's all to do with that sort of thing, you are thinking about how cold can that air be, and this so-called life hack means that you cut open the top of it or the bottom of them, these bottles, fill them full of ice, and for say 20 minutes you get nice cold air. But that's it. This stuff melts into the bottles. Where does it go? You know, I've not researched it properly. It sounds great, but for 20 minutes, half an hour, is it long enough? Is it worth doing? And that's probably why we haven't done it yet, me and my dad. But the heat just doesn't affect you or the way you're currently feeling. I'm convalescing from a almost life-threatening injury. Well, it was life-threatening at some point, and I'm still not fully healed. Now that's, you know, that's for reasons I haven't got a clue why. But this heat isn't helping. You know, the time period of the year is not helping my injury recovery. I'm almost there at the time of recording this, and it is fucking frustrating because of a bit of heat. I might be a bit sweaty down where the injury is, and it's like, that's not going to heal quickly, or that's not going to do this, that's not going to do that, and I can't take the next steps in my life until really this is fully healed and I've got a bit more money. Again, I digress, but the heat isn't doing me much good at this present moment in time. The frustrating thing is that there's always something else affecting me personally because of said heat. It's annoying as fuck, you know, and you see people like carrying drink bottles around and stuff. We need to be told, this is how society has grown more unintelligent as time goes by, right? We need to be told to drink, you know? We need to be told to do this. And yes, this is a milk jug that you buy from a supermarket that costs, you know, between £1, £1.50, depending on what supermarket you go to. My other step of advice: grab 2 or 3 of them, rinse them out thoroughly after you finish, because you don't really want your drink container smelling of milk. Shove 2 or 3 in the fridge if you've got enough room. Then you've always got a supply of cool water that, obviously, like the ice tip earlier I mentioned, this thing could potentially give you cold water for the rest of the day, you know, and you keep filling it up when you finish with 1 bottle, and it doesn't obviously last a tremendous amount of time, but for a space of say 20 to 30 minutes it's great, and you carry on doing that. But that's all because of this heat, and like I say, it's only going to get worse. That's the horrible thing here. It's only going to get worse. And I just... yes, I can lose a bit of weight. It's always going to help. But at the end of the day, you know, the heat can get a bit too much, and you don't... and here's the worst fucking thing as well about heat. Sometimes when you're not feeling great, you don't want to do anything. Your motivation hits rock bottom. And I'm not talking about at work or at school or whatever. I'm talking about when you're relaxing at home and you can't even be bothered to get up and turn the DVD player on or put a game on or whatever. You know, you just sit there and basically vegetate. You do fuck all. And that's the worst that heat can do for you. Not simply the fact of, oh, you might get a bit sweat. It's a bit sweaty like I am right now. You know, I'll freely admit I'm sweating. But that's because I've got barely any ventilation from outside. I'm a big boy. And my fan is off. You know, it's right there. It's right there in front of me. But I can't have it on because it picks up the noise from the microphone. You know, the microphone picks up the noise from the fan. You know what I'm talking about. So I then have to put up with being uncomfortable to bring you this Moaning Show and future ones like it. Now that's something I'm willing to do, specifically at the moment. But, you know, it's the heat from so many different sources, you know, can stop motivation of doing X or Y, and, you know, it does do someone a bad influence, you know, things and bits and bobs like that. But heat can be a killer as well, you know. We're talking, I mean, not obviously the temperatures that we're experiencing here in the UK, but we're talking like near the equator and people that can't get clean food and clean water, you know, and they drink because they have to stay alive, but then they get poisoned because of the crap that's in the water. And that's the heat that can do real damage, you know. If your water's not clean, you know, and you know, you get dehydrated and you get poisoning and all sorts of shit as well, and then you end up ill, or you end up with some sort of disease because you're not drinking proper water. And it's a dangerous thing, heat, you know. And to go with the heat, you might get heat, you might get skin cancer if you're out in the sun too long. It's fucking dangerous, and you have to, you know, spare a thought for those individuals that are suffering from heat related illness or heat related injuries, you know, burns even, you know, severe sunburn. You know, we're talking people that holiday abroad and they fall asleep because they're relaxed and all that sort of shit. They wake up and they are damaged, they are in some fucking pain. And, you know, it's, or people get caught in like wildfires and things like that. You know, you see these scary pictures on screen of wildfires in California and Australia and places like that, and you say, fucking hell, I'm glad I'm not out there, because they have to deal with this shit every single year. And you think, well, you bless your cottons, you know, quite grateful that you don't have to deal with that. But at the same time, you deal with what you can deal with in terms of heat. You know, if you can put up with it, yeah, more power to you. It's all about the mental discipline as well as the physical discipline. You have to take into consideration as well the issues that you might have and try and prepare for them. And if you're unprepared, you end up going to a electronics store or supermarket or whatever and try and buy something to keep you cool, and it's not always the case. You're not always going to be able to do it. It's like, oh, we have this and this. It's all you fucking got. And then you're thinking, as the retailer, we should have come here a month ago or 3 weeks ago. Prepare, you know. And that's basically what heat is. You've got to prepare for the worst times, because I'm sitting in relatively loose clothing. I'll say I am sitting in loose clothing. There's no two ways about it. But in winter, I might not be. You know, I might be a bit cold. I might be X and Y. And that's all to do with heat. It's easier to put more layers on than it is to take them off. So being cold is potentially easier to deal with than being really hot, like we are at the moment. And heat waves can also be dangerous in terms of, you might not have enough water, or you might not drink enough water, so you might have to go and check on a neighbour or a relative that lives fairly near you and see if they're okay. You know, you've got to take that into consideration as well. It's like, oh dear, you know, is blah 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 okay that lives down the road? 2 doors down, is old Doris alright? You know? And if heat waves persist, you have to think about, okay, does the local shop have enough supplies? Because I went into a co-op last year where 2/3 of the chocolate had melted. You know, and it's like, well, you don't have enough. And that's one of the problems as well. It's sort of like supply and demand. Heat affects the fucking harvest that the farmers can produce. You know, if there's not enough rain, they're fucked. So all of this is like a one big circle that encapsulates fucking everything, and it's only going to make itself worse because of the nature of the planet and how we're treating it. I'm not trying to give us an environmental message or anything, but this heat, as we so-called sit in it or drink in it or do whatever in it, you know, drive our cars to this and that and do this and all that sort of bollocks, this is our fault. This heat and the worsening of said heat is our fucking fault. You know, we're very immature as a species still, and you look at it that way and you think, well, we've fucked it now. We might well have done, but as far as the heat goes, that is our fault, and unless we prepare, we're not going to be able to cope with it. Food for thought there, isn't there? So with that little bombshell of a life lesson, I'm going to conclude this Moaning Show. I thank you very much for watching. Thoughts, comments and suggestions in the dialogue box underneath the video. Come on, people, start writing something, you know. I mean, a like, yeah, is great, you know, thumbs up or whatever. A few comments, you know, just say what you think about these videos. Again, I'm trying my absolute hardest to procure a better camera or better recording equipment. As for right now, I'm using you know, game console cameras and things like that to do this, and I'm going to have to until something better arrives, you know, or something better comes. So again, I apologise for any buffeting or buffering type things wrong with this video and previous videos, and for any videos in the future that have that same problem. But until then, you know, it's either put up with them or have no Moaning Show, you know. And at the moment I'm still enjoying doing these videos, and that's probably the main thing. It's motivation to do these videos, and at the moment I have this motivation. So anyway, thanks for watching this one, and I'll see you next time for more moaning. See you then.